All right, let's just do the Beto clip as well, because this was pretty impressive. And I think this is Beto realizing, like, I'm not running for Senate in Texas. I may not have much of a, statewide future in Texas, at least for the time being. And so I'm going all in on this. And of course, I think he was genuinely moved by the events that have taken place in Texas over the past 6 weeks.
Battlefield. If the high impact, high velocity round, when it hits your body, shreds everything inside of your body, because it was designed to do that, so that you would bleed to death on a battlefield and not be able to get up and kill one of our soldiers. When we see that being used against children, and in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15, and that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
And just to make the point here, somebody found this guy, Drew McKevitt, I don't know who he is, found an ad from an NRA magazine in 1962. The Armalite AR-15 rifle. It is a complete report on a .22 caliber rifle being offered for military purposes. I mean, this is what it was designed for. And, the NRA knew what it was back in 62. They understood what it was, as they wrote about it in the American Rifleman.
I like how one sentence is just 2 words, NATO caliber.
Right.
Oh. That moment, it actually moved me, and I can't say that much in politics moves me anymore. I found that very moving, and it was obviously because Beto, the passion shone through, and he was saying something that people are saying all over the country, that millions and millions of people say is common sense, right? That these weapons should not be in the hands of civilians, that it's outrageous that we have them. Other countries don't have them. This is not it's not a God-given right to have a semi-automatic weapon. There is no reason that people need those for any other purpose than for mass killings and, showing off to your friends when you go to Starbucks or whatever your reasons are, none of which are rational and reasonable. And the fact that a politician said that, in fact, I think I tweeted somebody last night when I was watching it, I've been waiting 20 years for somebody to say that, to somebody to just come out and say it. They've done it in other countries. They did it in Australia. They've done it in other countries. There is no, rational reason why that can't be done other than this, completely ridiculous gun culture that we have, and the NRA and its influence on, members of both parties, although that seems to be bifurcating now, and it's really concentrated in the Republican Party, and the NRA is in disarray, although I'm not sure that the gun rights movement is, going to be defanged simply if the NRA goes away, but we'll have to wait and see. But I thought that was a brilliant moment, and I think it does, it speaks to the value of somebody just saying, just speaking from the heart in politics. It's rare. You just don't see it very often. I mean, in a way, I think Sanders did that, as we just discussed, with his definition of democratic socialism. Warren does it when she's talking about, I think the middle class squeeze and the families. There's some real passion there, and Beto did it on that, and on racism as well. I mean, he took both of those issues. I think those are going to be something that he'll be working on after he, now that he's blown himself up in Texas politics. I mean, he's not going to get anywhere with that. But he'll be doing something along those lines, and obviously feels very passionate about it. And it was really good to see. I mean, I think that's the kind of thing. Now, if it's the kind of thing that if Democrats were like Republicans, they would say that they just made the Republican gun-owning snowflakes cry, right? I mean, they're drowning in conservative tears. I mean, that would be, but Democrats don't look at it that way. It's not done to troll the Republicans. It's done because it comes from a very real and authentic sense of total outrage and frustration that we're dealing with these mass killings, and that we're dealing with gun violence in general.
Right.
I mean, it's reaching this point where people are just, they are just absolutely appalled that we're dealing with it. And I think Beto voiced that very effectively.
I will note that I saw a clip of Chris Coons on some morning show this morning bemoaning the fact that Beto said this.
Oh,
and folks, keep an eye on Chris Coons, because if you ever missed, who was
Joe Lieberman?
Joe Lieberman. Well, I give you Chris Coons. He's going to be there. He's going to be the guy who's given us the problem with the filibuster, with guns, everything else. Chris Coons is the latest in. He wants the fulcrum seat, as it were. But
I'm sorry, I really got to say something about this. I love me some sad Beto, right? Anytime he looks like he's going to cry, that just really does it for me. But the framing of this answer, and I'm sure he wasn't thinking about it because most of them don't, whereby weapons of war are fine to use on the battlefield on people in other countries, but not here in the U.S., just really sets my teeth on edge. Like, nobody should be gunned down by an AR-15, no matter where they live, But you're not saying that people should be shot by single bolt action in war. You just don't think there should be war. Well, yeah, and we can stop selling arms to countries like Saudi Arabia that are using them to conduct horrible massacres.
Right. But I mean, it's not just that you have a problem with that specific gun that he's talking about.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
just you just don't think there should be we should be fighting wars, which I think is I think the idea is that it's a separate issue silo, and I think yes, it would be nice if there was none of these guns whatsoever. I think certainly the first step, and you just look at, let's say, like even tobacco. Right? Like what's happened with tobacco is we have more or less made it not used in this country. And they have basically just focused all on using it, selling it overseas. And I think it's evolutionary, but I don't know.
It is connected. Violence abroad is certainly connected to violence at home. When we look at these mass shootings and the reasons behind them, we have to look at the violence of our society.
Yes. And I would also even expand it to, we should get rid of all guns, because 30,000 suicides a year, I don't know what percentage of them could be stopped. Probably well more than half if people didn't have access to guns, and they're certainly not using AR-15s to kill themselves. They're using handguns, or maybe they're using a shotgun or something like that. But within the context of this, getting some movement, I take your point, but I'm not sure in that moment, like it's going to be more effective in getting rid of AR-15s in our society to say we shouldn't have guns or war.
Well, and that move is used more egregiously, I think, by Buttigieg, who uses it as a way to point out his military service.
Yes,
absolutely.
He is in there definitely trying to say, like, I've handled these things, and I just want to remind everybody I went to war. Digby, any last words?